Good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Welcome to Completely Machinima. And as we've mentioned the past couple episodes, we're changing our focus of the episodes to focus on the films, which is everybody's favorite. Don't forget to check our blog for the latest news about Machinima Omniverse and Unreal and all the different games that we cover. Lots of good information being published over there. But today we are here to talk about one of our film picks. My name is Phil Rice. With me is Damien Valentine, Tracy Harwood, and Ricky Grove.
Hello.
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 And Damien, we're going to talk about your film today. Most Precious Gift, I believe it's called. Tell us about
it. So this was actually my second pick because last week Tracy beat me to the...
It's a good second pick.
It is. It's actually quite similar in visual style. It's another very realistic space film. Everything is very detailed, but this one's actually rendered with NVIDIA Omniverse. And when I found this and I watched it, I was thinking about some of our previous discussions where we've talked about how people will make tutorial videos with iClone or Unreal or Omniverse, but they don't actually make any real films. And so this is one of the first real films I found with Omniverse, and it sets the bar pretty high, at least as far as what I can see. And 2 weeks ago, Phil, when we were talking about your film, the guy in it was saying about plagiarizing and learning by copying other people. There's a scene quite early on in this film where there's a shot of a window. It's all frosted and you can see the reflection of the spaceship interior on the glass. So as soon as I finished watching it, I loaded up Omniverse and tried to recreate that effect because I just really liked the way that looked. And I thought, I'm not copying the whole shot or anything like that. I just wanted to know how they got the reflective glass to do that. And it looked so good. So this is a film that is very inspiring to me, just from the visual side of it. But I found the story itself was very interesting and very unusual. It's created by someone, I'm going to probably butcher this name, so I do apologize. Shangyu Wang from China. So the spoken dialogue is in Chinese, but there is English subtitles at the bottom, which will help make it easy to follow the story. And it's a very spooky film, but it's not. I don't know if you could really classify it as pure horror because of the way the story unfolds. There's alien life forms in it, and they're very alien. It's not like Star Trek where it looks like a human with some lumpy bits stuck on their face. These are very alien creatures with a completely alien way of living. And it kind of deals with humanity's struggle to try and understand them because they're applying human thinking with how to appeal to these alien creatures. But of course, the alien creatures have no concept of human values. They've got something very different. And I'm not going to spoil it because that's the whole basis of the story. But that was something that really appealed to me as well. So what do you guys think of it?
Oh, I liked it very much. It is a fairly common trope in science fiction, the not first contact, but the ability to break communication between two entirely different species. That's been a theme in science fiction over and over again. There was a famous film in the last 4 or 5 years.
Arrival.
Arrival. There you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always a compelling and interesting topic. I thought that the alienness of the character, I thought was just marvelous. I did find, and of course the look is beautiful, but I found it a bit to be like a really incredibly designed candy in which the wrapper was just fantastic. And you finally open it up and you eat the candy, and it's a pretty good candy. It's a normal kind of candy. The expectations for this fantastic story and their final breakthrough were a bit of a letdown. I won't spoil it by telling you what actually happened, but it seemed somewhat the the people who were trying to communicate with the aliens seemed to be somewhat stupid, because they kept thinking technology. That's what they'll want. They want our technology. So we'll give them this super duper, cosmic ray gun. And of course they don't care for it. Well, you can pretty easily guess what it is they want. And when they finally get it, I hate to say this, but it's the kind of thing that just makes me cringe. The kind of sentimental ending where what they finally come up with is such a cliche that it didn't ruin the film for me, but I suppose my life is just different. I look at the world in different ways, I think the great majority of people will probably find that ending and how they actually finally communicate with the alien perfectly acceptable and nostalgic. But personally, for me, who likes a little more originality, I just found it a letdown in it. But overall, I just thought it was a marvelous story. The Eastern cultures like Japan and China use nostalgia and sentiment in very different ways. Oftentimes they'll, like in a manga or in anime, they'll actually use sentimentality and then turn it upside down. They'll do something with it that's unique. They didn't do that in this case. They just relied on the sentiment in it, and I was a bit disappointed in it, but not so much to say that I didn't like the film, which I did.
Well, okay. Do you want my view on it?
Yes.
Slightly more. Actually, I some of Ricky's comments there, I've kind of sort of think very similar ways, really. It's nearly 14 minutes long, which was very similar to the one that we reviewed last week, 13, 14 minutes long. And for the first 3.5 minutes of it, all you're seeing really is just positioning of the story. It's kind of setting the scene, building up the suspense for what's to come. It's kind of a story of impending doom. You kind of get this notion of planetary failure, alien invasion, death and destruction, all that sort of stuff, or at least that's kind of how it came across to me. I think what's kind of interesting, because it's told in Chinese with this sort of translation over the top of it. What I really picked up on is the voice actor has just the right tone, because of course you don't understand a word, or certainly I didn't understand a word of the Chinese language that's being spoken, which means your attention is drawn to the titles. As the story gets going, that text, I think, has the potential to be really distracting. But actually, the next part where the astronaut kind of leaves the Earth, you see the animation. They kind of travel to this alien planet. I'm not too sure why, because it's supposed to be about Earth, but there's this sort of travel scene in it to make some kind of exchange with this alien overlord. And the characters kind of talking to a commander. It's all quite dark, and so surprisingly, I think you're able to follow what's going on, but you're doing it primarily through the text and the tone of the voice and the soundscape. And then the next bit of it, from about 9 minutes on, is really the film. And there's this kind of quite surprising reveal at the end of it, where there's not a lot of talking, but it's kind of done in sort of chunks, I think. And having been set up as this kind of suspenseful interaction, there's kind of an alien attack and a failed mission, which you kind of feel is bound to sort of destroy the life of this astronaut. There's kind of something magical that kind of happens, and yes, it's invasive, and yes, it's intrusive and disorientating, but what you kind of see is it's kind of an alien recreating memories. I won't kind of spoil it beyond that, but basically what it's doing is invading the astronaut, and then revealing emotions. And that's actually quite an interesting theoretical concept about what is alien or it's kind of a traditional sort of way of thinking about what's alien or animal and human. What's the difference? It's this idea of humans have emotions, nothing else does. So this reference to emotions, I think, is really quite an interesting play, and I'd say probably the folks behind it may be quite academic in their understanding of the concepts that are being shown in this story. And obviously, what you've picked up on, Ricky, I also picked up on the fact that it's actually quite a sticky. It leaves quite a sticky taste in the mouth, really, doesn't it? With the feelings that are portrayed at the end of it. And I immediately thought of you and the comments that you made last month about emotion when it kind of got to that sort of point of the story. But what I liked about it was the journey that the creator took you on from this kind of place of hopelessness and fear to breakthrough and humanity, or at least what the essence of humans are, that sets them apart from kind of other living things. And the way that was told, I thought, was also quite intriguing, because they start with this idea of like a cardboard wall. Not sure why, but you have this kind of cardboard presentation, and then these kind of travel scenes in the spaceship that was very similar to what we saw in last week's film, and then this kind of alien planet and hostile encounter, fully back to this person's long forgotten memories of a homeland. And I thought that was really quite clever. That kind of sense of journey takes you through all these different styles. I thought that was very, very clever, very, very interesting in how it's done. There is something I will mention, though, because when I did a bit of research onto this has been entered into the 5th annual Global Game Art Contest, which is a Chinese CG contest that aims to showcase Chinese art talents and promote cultural exchanges. And the deadline for it is actually December this year. So this film only came out a month ago. So as we report on this is still a live contest, which I think is quite interesting. And it will be, I think, quite interesting to see how this finishes up in that contest. But at the moment, we don't know. Phil, over to you.
Good criticisms also always points out things that you missed and makes you enjoy especially if it's positive criticism, makes you enjoy the artwork even more. And that's what your comments just did. I like the film better now.
Phil?
Yeah, I think, well, to get out of the way first, craft-wise, as far as the design, the lighting, the animation, even the sound, I have no quarrel with it whatsoever. It's some really delicious moments. I could have done without the opening. You talked about it, Tracy, as almost like 3 different segments. I hadn't really broken it down that way in my mind until you said it, but yeah, that is what it is. And I could have done without the emblem segment altogether. The setup, for me, lop that off is still a meaningful story. I could get there what I needed to. I was a little bit put off by the trope. I think because I read Solaris in the last 12 months. And there's just no outdoing that or even competing with that in terms of alien entity who wants to understand or invade the minds of humans. This is kind of a pale shadow, but it's clearly influenced by that tradition. So yeah, it was hard to get that out of my head, but that's not going to be most viewers. And I think where it ended up arriving, I think I just expected more. Expected something even remotely innovative about their take on this idea,
right?
Of that unique aspect of seemingly unique aspect of humans and it's all born of this idea that boy, would aliens really be puzzled by this kind of Iron Man core of irrationality that we carry around with us and let us influence our decisions. That would be what would baffle them. That's the premise of this, really. Again, is that's the mystery. There's something weird about that, which is a very arrogant thing to say, I think. But I mean, arrogant as a species. We have no idea how unique that is, and we don't even fully understand what it is. But that doesn't mean that some other advanced species would necessarily be at all baffled by it.
Right.
But anyway, that aside, it wasn't the job of this film to resolve that philosophical quandary. I liked it overall. I think that I was just, with the journey that it took us on, I was hoping that there would be something of an insight or even an attempt at an insight. And it did. It all felt kind of played, but beautifully crafted. And if they were indeed creating this for a showcase and they're wanting to show different styles, then that's probably as good a way to do it as any. As good an excuse as any to incorporate 3 really completely different animation styles and settings into one mostly cohesive film. Then I guess that's the way to do it. But narratively, I could have done without the first third.
Yeah. Good points, Phil.
And I think it would hold up well without all that, because none of that underlying history really ended up mattering in the end. Yeah, right. It didn't weigh in at all. I mean, maybe for some it kind of elevated the imagination and made this world building a little bit more in depth. But for me, I feel like it was kind of fluff.
Yep.
I don't mean that as insulting as it sounds, but there's no way to use that word without it kind of having an edge to it. But I felt like it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
But I liked the film. Subtitles, Tracy, you talked about that. Yeah. I think part of the issue with the subtitles for me was something that it's very simple and very technical, but their position. The fact that they were all the way down at the very, very bottom edge of the screen. And the fact that I had to rely on them to know what was happening. So I spent half the time not looking at the image on the screen and instead of looking at the very, very bottom. Whereas if those had just been positioned a little bit more traditionally, you notice subtitles that are like brought in by TV or by video engine or whatever, the position matters. You don't want to have to draw the person's view completely away from the screen to see them. So I feel like nudging those up a bit might have helped a bit. Because the fact that they were down at the bottom when I'm watching full screen, I mean, it's a great deal of difference in angle. We were talking earlier in an earlier episode about the way our eyes work and focus and all that. And for me, that's what made those challenging. Because I watch TV with subtitles all the time. I'm not even hard of hearing yet, I don't think, but I just like it. We can watch it lower volume and it doesn't matter and all that. So having subtitles, no problem. I have no issue with that. But yeah, they had to wedge them all the way down on the screen, I think, because they were all bilingual. So they had to fit them somehow. Anyway, that was just a thought that came to mind when you mentioned the subtitles. It was. I found myself wishing I could read those and watch at the same time.
Bring them up, right? I think they missed an opportunity to create suspense when they could have had the lead female character indicate that she was retiring, that this was her last mission.
And she could have like a really crazy partner who's like suicidal.
Exactly.
And she could just keep saying, I'm getting too old for this shit.
I'm getting too old. I'm getting too old. Yeah, but they didn't. They chose not to do that. So
it's a missed opportunity. One other thing, in seriousness, regarding the animation, how in the world did they pull off the tendrils?
I know.
I was thinking that
so
too.
Good.
That's like some James Cameron shit there, That's like Terminator 2 stuff. It's like, how are they doing that? in whatever they made this in. I don't know how they did that, but that was remarkable.
I know you can't do that with Omniverse, at least not yet. So they
Right.
must have done it somehow.
It's amazing. I mean, that's high level CG work, or at least it certainly appears like it. And it was perfectly done.
Yeah.
It fit. Like it didn't look off place on the screen. It seemed to just blend right in with the rest of the tech being used. But that was absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like that.
I think that's one of the things is the alien with the tentacle effects and the design of it is very different from last week's video. This creature feels very new and weird.
Yeah.
The way it should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that tendrils thing just blew my mind. I have no, it's sometimes we often see stuff that we're like, how'd they do that?
Yeah.
But this was genuinely, oh my God, how did they do that?
I really want to know.
Yeah.
It also really produced an emotional response in me. It made me feel kind of creepy while I was watching it happen.
The sound for them was perfect. It was executed so well, that part.
Yeah. Which is why the last part is a bit of a letdown, isn't it, really?
Yes, the contrast between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly expected a little bit more at the end. Okay, well, I guess we're done on that film.
Yeah.
Yep, that was very good, Damien.
Yeah, great pick.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Kind of ties in with what is fast approaching us here, which is Halloween, huh?
Halloween,
quite spooky.
I think next week we have some picks from our in-house Halloween aficionado, Mr. Ricky Grove. He's going to have some scary stuff.
Oh yeah.
Looking forward to that very much.
I'm not.
Thank you for joining us. Be sure to send us your feedback at completelymachinima.com. Look for the talk button, and you can send it to us by email or by other methods. So let us know what you think about all these. Was I being too hard on this movie? Were we?
No. I think
did we love it? No, I want them to tell us.
Oh.
See
All right.
you
That's
next week.
Bye.
See you. Bye.